All right, welcome to the People's Apothecary. We are going to do a virtual garden tour of this amazing community garden. You're going to see that we just have a community member in the background that is weeding out our ladies' mantle right now. And this garden is located behind the old Vancouver Island School of Art, which the signage is obviously gone now because that's not a school that's located here anymore. But it's between on Quadra Street between Kings and Hillside. And this is a community garden that you're more than welcome to come in at any time and weed and sit and do plant meditation. So on our virtual tour, the first plant that we're going to go look at is our elder tree. So we have quite a large tree. And this is a tree that when I grow it in my own garden, I actually cut it quite a bit shorter so that when the new growth happens, I can actually reach the top of the tree. Right now with this one, I've been trying to maintain it a little bit. I cut it back quite a bit the last few years, but it's still quite tall. So when the elder leaves out, which it's doing right now, and then it puts out its flowers and its berries, they tend to be quite high, which is typically above what we can be reaching. So this is where we have to get some ladders. So our elder is going to produce two different crops. We have our elderflower, which is going to be coming out in a few months from now. Elderflower is an amazing anti-catarrhal. Catarrh is an old term for mucus. So it really helps to break up and slow down the excessive mucus production that can happen in a cold or a flu. And then later on in late August and early September, that's when we can be harvesting our elderberries, which is a very specific or has a very specific antiviral activity. So antiviral activity is something that us herbalists can really offer to our community. We do have pharmaceuticals that are antiviral, but they tend to be very expensive. So if you have a viral infection, like a flu, oftentimes the doctor is just going to say, go home, rest, drink lots of fluids, and because antiviral pharmaceuticals are very expensive. But this is an excellent time for you to be taking elderberry when you have a cold or a flu. Over here we have another little elder that's just starting to grow. I just planted this one last year from one of my elder baby offshoots, and it's just starting to leaf out. So really excited that this one is surviving, and we're going to have two beautiful elders to flank our main path. Over here we have beautiful lovage. So lovage is going to get much taller. So this is going to be as tall as me or taller, so 5 foot, even getting up to 6 feet tall, and very amazing aromatic. It's a great digestive aromatic. It's also known as an aphrodisiac, lovage. And we can be using it mostly for digestion. That's how I like to use it, as a green juice. So in the early springtime, taking one of these little leaves and nibbling on it, so lovely. It's very celery tasting and just so vibrant. So you can take it, maybe wait a little bit more just so we have a bit more growth, and then you can come here and grab some beautiful lovage and juice it. So lovely. Amidst all of our grass here, we do have a tire patch of mint. We have like a mint medley because we have many different mints that are probably crossed over. A little rhubarb there. And then next to our mint patch is our lemon balm patch. And we've got lots of lemon balm here. It's kind of spread around quite a bit, which is wonderful. Because lemon balm, not only is it super yummy, so if I take a leaf here and I crush it, it smells very lemony. You can also tell it's lemon balm compared to mint that we have more of a serrated edge, and it tends to, the venation tends to be a little bit deeper. So it's got more of a depth and a kind of reticulate venation pattern going on with our lemon balm. So it looks like a little spider web kind of going off. So the smell is a really great way of identifying it. Later on, it's going to have a cute little pink flower that's going to, or is a very light pink flower. And we can be using our lemon balm as a thymoleptic. So it helps to raise our energy and our mood particularly. Really great nervine for the nervous system. also good for digestion, so it's got lots of essential oils, so great for gas and bloating. And also when it's in flower, we can harvest it fresh and make fresh medicine, and it's antiviral activity. So lots and lots of lemon balm. Our mints over here that are just starting to pop up. I minced the lemon balm, so it's right next to it. You can see that our mint has more of a smooth edge. This one's lemon balm right here next to it. And so we can see that it has a little bit more of a smooth edge to it. It still has a serrated edge, but it's just less reticulate compared to our lemon balm, which has a spider venation to it. Also can really tell because when I break it and I crush it, it smells very minty. This one probably might be spearmint. So yummy. And so our mints obviously can be used as a digestive tonic, lots of essential oils, so it really helps to dispel gas and bloating as a carminative. It's also really cooling to the system. Great in drinks like mojito, of course. And this is an excellent one to also add some flavoring components to your teas or to your tincture. A lot of people really like the mint flavor. Over here we've got our compost. This is one thing that we're hoping to do this year, is to redo our compost that is starting to falter a little tiny bit and is not really as productive in composting our plant material as we would like. And we're hoping also here to build a tool shed in the future. We got more lemon balm over here. We have, let's see if it's coming up yet. This is where our comfrey patch typically is, but comfrey doesn't look like it's coming up yet. We also have that comfrey over here. Let's see if we can find it over here. So this is our comfrey that's just starting to come up, so you won't be able to really see it yet, but this is going to be a really big patch. We've got lots over by the compost as well. And comfrey is a great cell regenerator. We can be using it on tissues if we've got many wounds. It also has this reticulate pattern, so kind of like a spider venation pattern. So instead of the lines of the veins just being one way, they're kind of almost like globular. It's called a reticulate pattern. And they have a really smooth edge. It's hard to really do a good plant ID with this one when it's so tiny like this, but one thing is that it has really smooth edges to it. It's a little bit fuzzy, which I might, oh yeah, there we go. You can see it's got some hairs on it. Compared to our foxglove, a lot of people get confused with foxglove for identification. Foxglove is something we need to be really careful with. That one will severely hurt someone if we use that as medicine. That one can stop a heart. So it has a really strong constituent called digoxin from our digitalis, which is foxglove, and it is used in pharmaceuticals to stop and start a heart. So we need to really be careful when we're identifying that this one is comfrey and it's not foxglove. Foxglove looks like it's had a hard life. So instead of it being like this nice bright green color, it tends to look like bugs have eaten it, or it's got like brown edges to it, and the flower is very different. So we've got a stalk and we've got these bell flowers coming down off of this really tall stalk, versus this is going to have cute little bell flowers that come from underneath the leaf, and they're just small little tiny ones that droop underneath, versus the foxglove has a really tall raceme, so stalk of flowers that look very different. So when they're in leaf form without the flowers, it's looking at the leaf pattern, and if you don't know, just wait till it goes into flower to properly identify. So comfrey, we can be using it topically in salves, or we can make a tincture and use it topically, and it's again a really great cell regenerator. We've got our lovely dandelion, which is coming out right now. And dandelion's one that people obviously are really familiar with, but there is some, get a little better view of it. There is some plants that can kind of look like dandelion that people can get confused with. So cat's ear is an example of one where people think that it's a dandelion because it has a yellow flower. But some of the key differences is that dandelion only has one flower, so it's a solitary per stalk, versus cat's ear will have multiple flowers coming off of the stem. Our dandelion also has a very fleshy, very fibrous stem. So you can see how, if I can get a little good zoom on it, a very fibrous stem. And there's a latex on the inside that comes out. It's a little early for the latex right now. Oh, there we go. There's the latex. So that latex is coming out, and the stalk is hollow. Versus cat's ear, the stalk is going to be, for the flower stem, is going to be a little bit more of a firm, sturdy stem. There's not the latex, and it's not hollow. Our dandelion, we've got our leaves here. And our leaves kind of looks like a lion's tooth, so dent lioness, which I'm brutalizing the French of that. And so they've got these really jagged edges to them. When they're young like this, you can eat them as a fresh green. So super yummy. You can also take the flower heads, and you can pop off the flower heads and take them off the sepals, so this green part. Hi. So take it off this green part here, and you can fry it up in like a pancake batter, and you can have little dandelion fritters. So I'll post some photos later on about the dandelion fritters in a recipe, because they're super yummy, and this is the time of year to start looking at harvesting your flowers and making dandelion fritters. The medicine that we're harvesting though is the leaves. When they're a little bit later, this is a nice time to eat them as a salad green, but when they're later, they're going to get more bitter, and we're going to be using it as a diuretic. This is a potassium sparing diuretic, so it's full of minerals, and it's going to spare the mineral potassium as well, which pharmaceuticals diuretics deplete potassium. We also can be using the root, and the root is a really nice digestive bitter. So it's not too bitter compared to some of our other plants that you're going to see later on in the garden. So it's a nice mild one. You can roast it up and have it as a substitute coffee. So you have like nice yummy roasted dandelion and roasted chicory. But we're going to be using the root as a digestive bitter to help with getting the digestive system going. So the bitter, we have to taste it, and the bitter is a reflex from our mouth into our stomach, and it's going to get the digestive juices moving. So as we move along in the garden, we have Oregon grape. And so Oregon grape is a plant that we use the root, and the root has a constituent. Just trying to get my knife in my holder. There we go. So we have a constituent called berberine, and berberine is this bright, there it is, yellow color. Let's see if I can focus that better. So this berberine is this bright yellow color. I don't know where my camera's not focusing. Well, it wants to focus on everything. Maybe if I put my hand behind it, that might help somewhat. So it's that bright yellow color, and that is berberine. Berberine is an alkaloid. So in pharmaceutical, when they're looking at plant medicine, they're often looking at alkaloids, so they end in INE, so codeine, morphine, nicotine, berberine. These are really strong activity, and this yellow color, which I've highlighted in the sign here, is the berberine, and this is a non-systemic antimicrobial. So a non-systemic antimicrobial means that it has to touch the tissue. So it's going to be an antimicrobial for the mouth, our digestive tract, going all the way down, but it's not going to be an antimicrobial unless it touches the tissue. So I can use it topically or for digestive infection. So really good as a digestive bitter as well, and as an antimicrobial for the digestive system. So this is the tall Oregon grape, so it's quite a bit bigger than the Mahonia nervosa, which is the forest one. So you're going to find out in the Pacific Northwest. And the Pacific Northwest one, when you dig that one up, it has a very tiny root. So I really recommend thinking about growing this plant and maybe even harvesting some of the stems for medicine as well. So taking off the outer bark and then scratching off the berberine and then leaving the inner core. Because if we harvest the Mahonia nervosa, you pretty much get a root from a whole plant the size of a pencil, and that might weigh about 3 to 5 grams. So that's 10 mils of tincture from one plant. Versus the tall Oregon grape, this root is quite a bit bigger, and we have more availability in terms of medicine with also the branches. All right, over here we have, just popping up and everyone's excited about it, nettles. So nettles are amazing, nutritive, tonic plant, lovely in our mineral-rich teas where we'll do a long extraction. Lots of ways you can be also consuming nettles internally. So a lot of people are doing nettle pesto, nettles in their smoothies. There's recipes on nettle lasagna. I've made that one a few times. Or nettle cake. I have a friend that made a nettle cake that looks like moss, so you end up making this crumbly green cake and then you decorate it on the top and it looks like moss. It's so beautiful. And these are just so yummy to be eating. I love frying these up in some butter and just eating them as a vegetable. I love it on the side, but also cooking with it. So nettles they're pretty young right now, so not gonna sting too much. See if I can get a focus on my camera. But we've got these little hypodermic needles on the underside of the nettle and on the top, which is really hard to highlight these. And these are giving that stinging quality. So if you touch them and you get stung, that is the hypodermic needles and it can cause an irritation. If that happens, go grab some mint, which is over there. And the mint is going to help to soothe it, so it's going to be nice and cooling. It's going to reduce the irritation. But if you don't have mint around and you got stung, I'm just going to try to get my gloves off. One thing you can do is you can take the nettles, bare hands, and let's see, I'm going to get one that's a little bit bigger. And what I'm going to do, my glove here, is I'm going to fold it up into itself, and I'm going to take my nail and I'm going to just like squish it back and forth a little bit, and then I'm going to eat it. No juice that I get from it, that can help to reduce the sting. So if I got stung on my hand, I can put that directly onto my hand, that juice and the plant, and now I just made a spit poultice. But you can also just eat the nettle that way. So lots of nettles. And they're just coming up right now. And for harvesting the nettles, I like to take, when they're a little bit bigger than this, so I would wait probably another, for this patch I would say waiting another 2 to 3 weeks would be ideal, as I would take the first kind of top 4 to 6, and I have a nice sharp knife to do that with, or I pinch it, and I'm taking the top kind of, this is actually, because there's so little leaves, I would probably take a bit less than that, so this is the top 6 leaves, so I usually take the top 4 leaves. All right, so over here we've got 2 plants. I don't think this one's coming up quite yet. So this tall plant right here, this is our mugwort, which I don't see any leaves coming up yet. But we've got mugwort. We've got a whole mugwort patch over there a little bit further too, I'll show you. And we've got our wormwood. So these are both in the same genus, so they're in the Artemisia genus. And Artemisia has this really classic look. We're on the underside. Again, if I can get my camera to focus. It's got this like silver quality. And if I could zoom in, it would look like a very, like hairs that were finely matted. Which is not letting me focus. Oh, so close. Let me try that again. Okay, there we go. We can kind of see that fine, oh, that's perfect. We can see the nice matted hairs underneath. So it's got this silver look to it and these fine hairs that are matted. Wormwood was what was made to make absinthe. So wormwood is Artemisia absinthium. I don't know why there we go. My camera's having a hard time focusing right now. So Artemisia absinthium, and this is what was used to make absinthe. This is very bitter, so it's a very cold, bitter plant. So if you're using it, we want to make sure we warm it up because a cold, bitter plant can be very dampening to the system, so it can be too cold for someone's system, but it is really effective for parasites, hence the name wormwood. Mugwort, which is growing right next to it, which is this really tall, the remnants of it are right here, the seed heads from last year. They're right here. Mugwort is known as a dream herb. Also a digestive bitter, very lovely as a nice, a little bit less cold, less bitter plant than wormwood, but a lot of people put it into their teas or into a sleep mix to help with dreams. Over here, we've got beautiful lady's mantle, and it's so nicely weeded. Thank you. And so we've got lady's mantle. It's just coming up, and you can see we've got these little tiny leaves that are just coming up right now. And these leaves, I always think they look like, obviously, kind of like a little accordion here. But when they get bigger, I always think that they look like a dress that someone is twirling, or a very big skirt that someone's twirling. Our lady's mantle is a great uterine tonic. It's a nice uterine astringent, really good for excessive discharge. A lot of people use it for female or the feminine energy connection. And it's just a really lovely one just to help tonify the reproductive system. Over here, next to our elder, just underneath, is elecampane. And elecampane is just starting to pop up right now. So we've got some little tiny leaves that are just coming up. And elecampane is going to get really tall, and it's going to have these beautiful, bright yellow flowers. It's in the Asteraceae plant family, so it looks like a daisy. This one kind of looks like a dandelion flower, which that one's also in the Asteraceae plant family, and it gets really tall. This is a really lovely digestive aromatic, so it's very strongly aromatic, very high, really rich in essential oils. We also are going to be using it in the respiratory system, so using it for any kind of colds or flus. It helps to pull up, it goes a bit deeper first, but then it helps to pull up any infection. So very antimicrobial for the lungs and for the digestive system. We got some fennel back there. So fennel's a lovely aromatic digestive as well. Over here, we've got our yellow dock. Our yellow dock likes to move around, so you're gonna see that it's everywhere in the garden, and I'm only trying to keep it in this one patch, which that doesn't happen. And so yellow dock, we're gonna be using the roots, the yellow roots when we dig them up, and it's a very nice mild laxative. It's really great for digestion, but we're also gonna be using it as a alterative. So by cleansing the interior, we're going to have a positive effect on the skin as an alterative. So we've got yellow roots. Yellow dock also has this leaf that looks really like it's had a hard life. So it gets this kind of molted look to it, and that's just a way that this plant always grows. That's a good way of identifying it. We have some thistles in here and some weeds. So these could be weeded out at one point. Back here we've got some more lemon balm against the fence and some yarrow, which we'll talk about yarrow in a second. Right here, underneath these stalks, is our meadowsweet. So we've got meadowsweet and we've got agrimony growing next to it. So I'm gonna see if we have any agrimony popping up. I don't see any agrimony popping up, but it is going to be growing right here, and it looks really similar to the meadowsweet. Some of the key differences between the agrimony and the meadowsweet is that meadowsweet has this red stem, and the agrimony doesn't have a red stem, and it looks fuzzier. When it's in flower, they're very different. So, oh, here's some agrimony. Let's see, where is it in the camera? Here it is. So our agrimony looks very similar to meadowsweet, but we don't have a red stem. And it just looks a little bit fuzzier than the meadowsweet. This one's gonna have a yellow flower, and the flower is after it flowers and it goes into seed, it's very sticky. It's kind of got a burr to it. It's very similar to burdock. And those seeds will travel around. So in the paths, I'm guessing we're going to have a lot of agrimony popping up because it's just starting to come up. So our meadowsweet and our agrimony, we can be using this as an astringent. So really great if there's any diarrhea or any loose discharge. But our meadowsweet, one of the differences is that we have a constituent called salicin in it. And salicin gets converted to salicylic acid. So it has to pass through our digestive system and it goes to the tissue, and if we have inflammation in the tissue, it's going to turn into the active constituent called salicylic acid, which is anti-inflammatory and analgesic. So our meadowsweet has an anti-inflammatory analgesic and it's astringent. So it's really good for diarrhea or any kind of loose discharges. And this plant is going to have a beautiful creamy white flower, and it smells amazing. This is what the flower looks like, and it's just so lovely. So I harvest the meadowsweet when it's in flower, and it's going to get really tall. These are the remnants, these stalks here are the remnants of the meadowsweet, so it's going to get about this tall. Versus our agrimony is probably only going to be the size of the sign at the most. It doesn't get too tall. Over here we have some more mints. So our mints are just starting to pop up amidst our dandelions. And over in this patch, this is our calendula patch, which it's pretty early season, so I don't know if there's any calendulas that are popping up yet, but I see some calendula seeds, and I also brought some seeds to plant in here. But I see some other things popping up, like these are not calendula, but we do have lots of seeds, and I don't see any shoots yet of calendula. Calendula has really big leaves. This is one. There we go. So when it comes up, it tends to have these bigger leaves compared to these ones are more globular. This is not calendula, and this one is calendula. And it's going to have a beautiful orange and yellow flower to it. So this is an asteraceae, so it looks like a daisy. And we use the flower head, and it's one of our best skin herbs. So really great for all types of skin healing, It's one of the herbs that if you're not quite sure, try calendula first. Comfrey, as mentioned, it's a really great cell regenerative, so it helps to heal tissues, but it also can be healing too quickly. So it can actually cause, if you didn't wash out your cut well enough, it actually can cause the tissue to heal over top of that and cause further infection. Versus calendula is a little bit more of a slower healer, and so we can be using it as our first response to any cuts. So this is going to come popping up later on in the season. So I had mentioned a few minutes back about the thistles that were not medicine over by the yellow dog, and that one did not have this white quality to it. This white quality that looks like spilled milk is a really classic identifying feature of milk thistle. This plant is going to get really tall, so taller than me, about 6, 7, 8 feet tall, and it's going to have a purple flower. That flower is going to have a seed head, which I think I took them all at this point. I don't think I see any seed heads right now. And that seed head is going to be full of these black little seeds, and it's the seed that we're using of milk thistle. Milk thistle is a wonderful liver tonic, so it helps to restore and rejuvenate the liver function. So one of our best herbs, because our liver is important for all of our conditions. So if you're not quite sure, try milk thistle first, and it's going to be beneficial for all types of conditions. Next to our milk thistle, we've got some feverfew, which I don't see it coming up yet, but feverfew kind of looks like chamomile. This is the remnants of it. Well, it's too early to see that one coming up. Oh, nope, I found some. So this is the early feverfew popping up. And feverfew has that really beautiful yellow, or yellow center and a white flower that kind of looks like chamomile. But some of the differences is that chamomile will have leaves that are more sticky-like, so they look like little sticks, versus this is a more globular leaf. Our feverfew, we're going to be using it for migraines. So if you like heat with your migraine, then you'll like feverfew. If you like cold, so you like to put your head in the freezer or get an ice pack out and put on your head, then the feverfew will make your headache worse. Next to our feverfew, we've got two amazing plants. So we've got our wood betony, which is right here, and wood betony is going to make this beautiful pink flower. Really lovely grounding nervine. It's very bitter. That's one of my favorite grounding nervines. So it helps to ground us in our experience. And next to it is vervain. So this is the beginning of vervain. This is all the remnants that gets to be about this tall of vervain. And vervain, when it shoots out into the flower, so let's see here. This stalk here would have had some flowers and leaves. The flowers are a blue color, and they're really tiny, and we use the entire aerial, so the leaves and the flowers and the stems, and it's a really nice grounding nervine. So both these together, we can be using it for grounding, pulling our experience into our body. The vervain also has an antidepressant quality, and I like to pair these two with rose, and we've got a beautiful rose that's growing right here, and this rose makes the yummiest rose hips, which is not the season now, obviously. This is an old remnant rose hip, but this one, the rose hips are like jujubes, like cherry jujubes. They're so yummy, and they're so nutritious, so full of high amounts of vitamin C, very nutritious, and the roses are lovely as well for the nervous system. Next to our mints, we have some angelica, and ooh, a little surprise, someone made an angelica tincture and it's hanging out. That's fun.
I thought it would like to hang out with the microphone.
Oh, That's so nice. And so, my goodness, surprise. So our Angelica is going to get much bigger. It's going to get to be 8 feet tall. It's got these seed heads. This is the photo of it. So it's got these seed heads that are kind of come out. And I'm going to come here and keep cutting down the seed heads because we had one Angelica and it was our prize beauty of the garden. It was our tallest plant, so it was pretty much as tall as that one there, and that's how big our biggest plant was when we first were growing in the garden. And from there I let it go to seed, and unfortunately I didn't catch it soon enough and the seeds went everywhere, and I've been weeding out Angelicas for 6 years. So we finally have it under control now, and to this little patch here, which these is going to get much bigger, these plants. And I'm not going to let it go back to seed because that was a lot of work to try to get it out of places. So Angelica is going to get much bigger. We use the root of Angelica, and it's a beautiful aromatic digestive. So we can be using it for helping with, it's a nice warming digestive, so it's going to help with stimulating the digestive function. So it's a digestive bitter, but it's aromatic and it's warming at the same time. This is a biannual, so it means it's going to grow for 1 year, and the second year is going to shoot up flower and seed. But because we live in such a temperate zone in Victoria, that I find that it tends to grow longer than that, but the root's not good anymore. So last year we actually dug up quite a few of these plants and the root was rotting. So it looks so beautiful and it looked like it was so lush and vibrant, but when we actually dug up the root, it was rotting in the ground. So don't use a rotting root when you make medicine. Over here, we have, we've got some mugworts coming up here and some marshmallow. I'm gonna try to find, same with over here. I'm gonna just try to find all of this plant here. This is Buttercup. It needs to go. It's taken over this area. The plants are still good. Here's some. So this is mugwort. So I know it looks really similar to the buttercup that's behind, but our mugwort, again, has this silver quality to it when I put the leaf upside down, and the leaves are really tiny right now. So we got that silver quality, and if I could get my camera to focus better, you would see that it's got those little matted hairs versus the buttercup next to it. Kind of, I know it looks silver in the camera, but it's actually not silver and there's no hairs underneath. So wormwood is going to get very, very, very tall. Mugwort, I don't know why I keep calling it wormwood. Mugwort is going to get very, very, very tall. We also have some thistles. This is not milk thistle. This is a weed thistle that can come out. More weed thistles. But over here we have marshmallow, and I'm just going to see if there's any marshmallow leaves coming up. I don't see any yet. No marshmallow leaves, but marshmallow leaves are going to look like this. They're soft and they're fuzzy, they get really big, and then we've got a beautiful yellow, or more like a white pinkish flower that comes out, and we have these beautiful roots, and it's the roots that's the medicine. And marshmallow is very demulcent, so when you dig up this root, if you put water on it or you licked it, you find that it starts to get mucilaginous. And that mucilage, we're going to be using it as a soothing to the tissue. So externally it's an emollient, and then internally it's a demulcent. So soothing to our mucous membranes. Over here, we have valerian. So valerian, this one doesn't have a sign, but valerian has this really specific leaf look. So it's got a reticulate leaf pattern. So kind of like the venation is not straight. It's kind of breaks off and branches off. And the valerian, we use the root, and the root is these little tiny rootlets, right like this one. They're white. Oh, it smells so strong. So white roots, so if I clean this off, it'd be white. Very smelly, so I call this a scratch and sniff plant. So we can dig it up and then we scratch it and make sure it's the right one. And our valerian, we're going to be using it as a sedative. So not everyone likes the smell of it, and not everyone responds the same way with valerian, but most people find that it's very sedating. It has an antispasmodic activity as well, and it's so amazing. It's going to get really tall, so it's going to get about 6 feet tall with creamy white flowers. Back here we have our raspberries. So we've got a raspberry patch all along here, obviously super yummy to eat as a berry, but in a few more weeks we're going to come and harvest the leaves of our raspberry before it flowers, and this is a Partus preparator, so it helps to prepare the uterus for childbirth. So we're going to do it from the second trimester and drinking as a tea, a daily tea, to help prepare the uterine muscle for childbirth. Such a wonderful one. Over here we've got St. John's wort, and St. John's wort is going to produce a very beautiful yellow flower, and this yellow flower, when you crush it, is going to be bright red. One way of identifying the St. John's wort is if you hold it up to the light, which I'm not sure if we're going to be able to get it in the camera today. It's got these little perforations. No, it's not going to want to focus for me. But we got these little tiny holes. Oh, there we go. Oh, look at those little red dots. So those red dots are full of hypericin. Hypericin is the active antiviral, antidepressant activity. So if I crush this, it probably won't be bright, and I also have really dirty gloves, but if I crush this, I probably would get like a little bit of red coming out, but it's really the flower that has a lot more of it, and that you can see a lot more. Yeah, this one's not really going red right now, but I get another piece here. See if I can get on the underside, you would see those would also be shining in the light as holes, as perforations. St. John's wort is very antiviral, antidepressant. Next to it, we have our yarrow, and our yarrow is just starting to come up. So we've got a whole big patch of yarrow here. So yarrows, we can be using it for fevers. We can also be using it to help balance out the menstrual flow. So it has a balancing, regulating effect. Also astringent, a bitter, so you can be using it for digestion. Yarrow is one of these herbs that can be used in so many situations. And over here we've got some milk thistle popping up, but we also have some motherwort. So motherwort is a beautiful plant for courage, for finding boundaries, and it looks really soft right now, but when it goes into flower and then seed, it has this really spiky quality to it. Whoop. So it gets really spiky. There we go. And so the flowers are actually going to come out of these spikes. So it looks super soft right now, but this is a really good boundary plant. So it's really good for creating boundaries with relationships or with yourself or with partnerships, where it looks super soft, but then it's saying, that's good. That's close enough here. This is also a great herb to help with heart palpitations. Leonaris cardiaca. So we got lots of motherwort growing back here. We also have horseradish right here. So the horseradish is just starting to pop up. Horseradish, we can be using it in fire cider as a really stimulating aromatic, really fiery, really spicy. So really good for colds and for flus. There's other plants here, but my phone is going to die. It's giving me 2 warnings now. That's a really nice introduction to the People's Apothecary. Lots of plants to explore. Lots of plants to weed out. Anything in the paths you can weed out, so anything that you're unsure of, doesn't matter if it's a plant that you want. If it's in the paths, it goes out. There's also going to be some leaf mulch that's getting delivered this week by the compost, and I'm going to have some bins so you can come and put leaf mulch on all the garden beds. And then later on I'm going to get some more wood chips and we'll wood chip the path. But these are things that you can do at the garden right now: harvesting roots, weeding, meditating. And this is the beautiful People's Apothecary.